So hey guys, I'm currently in Russia for the first ever Wargaming Fest, but I decided to schedule this video up. Hope you guys enjoy, I hope I survive Russia. But anyway, here we are, the tank that got me to grind down the British TD line. The A39 Tortoise. One of the sexiest looking tanks in the game, in my opinion, of course. Just look at the tracks, the cannon, the incredible curves, this huge goddamn towering weak spot, the amazing details.
Oh my gosh!
But with a reload of 6 seconds and 400 average damage, it's currently the tank with the highest DPM in the game. And since we're talking about the gun, let's also mention it's got 1.7 second aim time, a dispersion value of 0.31 and 259 penetration, which makes this one of the best performing guns in World of Tanks. If you can keep this gun effectively firing, you will experience the same amount of joy as getting told that there's cake. A Nutella chocolate cake, that is. Now, let's talk about the 230 armor this beast supposedly has in the front. No, it does not. At least not all over. But just saying, you should never rely on the armor of the Tortoise. The second you'll think, meh, there's no way he can pen me, it all is cool, you're gonna get penetrated because you were a bad boy / girl and thought you could rely on armor mechanics in World of Tanks. So earlier I low-key mentioned a certain weak spot on this thing. It's the spot that will constantly be in the sights of your opponents, and if the shell hits, it will penetrate, no maybe there. And if that's not enough, one of the two loaders' heads is positioned right there. So get your mop and bucket ready, because you're gonna be mopping up spilt tea and brains after almost every match. Of course, there is a way to prevent enemies from exploiting your huge flashy flaw. Hide it behind buildings. Just try to plan your route ahead, because if you haven't noticed, this thing is pretty slow. Another pro tip is to angle your armor all the time. Since your gun arc is so wide and it is a boxy tank, the angling is really effective. Also, never stand still. Even if you move forward and backwards just a bit, it will help immensely to not being as easily penned. Speaking about medium to long range here. It's easier to be way back and camp, shoot with your scout spot, and since your armor is still relatively thick, at that range the little turret will actually be hard to hit. It won't be giving you much problems. Much. Artillery though. Yeah. Downside is that the tide of the battle can turn surprisingly quickly, and if you're just camping in the back while your team is moving up, you will be left behind quickly. Aggressive way is a lot more satisfying when it works, but if you're going to be exposing the weak spots to multiple enemies, then you're as good as dead. Remember that you have the highest DPM in the game, so 1v1 you'll always win if you and your enemies have similar health. You're gonna get circled a lot too, so there's also that to watch out for when you got enemies close. Okay, enough of this boring game stuff, let's take a look at the history. So, if you watched my ISU video, you know that the role of the ISU and SU was to destroy heavy fortifications, or defenses. Same here. In early 1943, more and more fortified defenses started popping up, so the British started working on an idea for an assault tank. It would prioritize armor and firepower over mobility. They focused on the Excelsior heavy tank, which was based on the Cromwell. They also wanted to try and upgrade the armor of the Churchill tank for this purpose. Then the Secretary of State decided, enough of this reusing and repurposing shit. Let's make a new vehicle altogether. So he issued an order that gave much more specific specifications for the so-called assault tank, which classed it as a special purposed vehicle to operate in heavily defended areas as part of the Specialist 79th Armored Division. Now, between May 1943 and February 1944, 18 separate designs were drafted. To us World of Tanks players, known as the 82, 87, 88 and the 8015. Each design was heavier and larger than the former, they kept improving faults and they kept taking the good part of each design, and thus the 8016 design was completed. the tank board approved the design and proposed that they start producing the assault tank without making prototypes at all, so it could be available for service by September of 1945. They ordered 25 of the 1816s to be built, but the war ended and the order was reduced and only 6 tanks were built. And to avoid confusion, let's make it clear that the 1816 was the production name for the 839 Tortoise, since we're tossing the names around. Even though that they didn't make any prototypes to check for faults, when they sent one of the tanks to Germany for trials, they found that it was mechanically reliable and that it's a powerful and accurate gun platform. Obviously, with a weight of 80 tons and being 3 meters tall, it was very difficult to transport over long distances. I should also mention that the real-life version did not have the 120mm gun mounted, but instead the QF 32-pounder gun that we can also see as an option for mounting in-game. Obviously, these never saw real battle, but one of them is still preserved in the Bothen Tank Museum. It's in full working order regarding the mobility part. If you're wondering if you should try and grind towards the Tortoise, I would say that depending on your game style, it can be pretty fun or really frustrating. I have experienced both of those and I like it a lot more than I hate it. I'm gonna stay neutral on this one, sorry, but if you have no idea what else to grind, go for it. Oh yeah, and keep in mind, all of the ATs have this huge weak spot on top, so watch out. Well, that wraps up the Tortoise. In the previous video, when I asked if you guys like the history, the answer was more than obvious. Thank you for the feedback, I'm really glad you guys enjoyed this. Well, that's that. Hope I make it out of Russia alive and sober. We'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers!